And we've got a potentially record-breaking poll also. Should gender reassignment for children be a criminal offence? Yes or no? 20,000 people have already voted and the show has just begun. Get your vote in now, yes or no, on my Telegram channel, on my Twitter feed, on the YouTube community stream, or on the YouTube stream that you may well be watching. Do you remember they said that the January 6th protesters had desecrated the hallowed halls of the US Congress? Do you remember the hushed tones with which they described these bison-hatted, bead-wearing buffalo soldiers strolling through the corridors of the US Congress? Well, get this. A Democratic Party congressman, a man I've just seen behaving in a way that you no longer see outside bars in Sauchiehall Hall Street in Glasgow, whilst berating another member of Congress, a name that you may not yet be familiar with outside of the United States, but a former member of the Squad, a man who was supposed to be a political progressive. In order to save Joe Biden's budget, including gigantic tranches of new money for weapons for the Kiev regime in the war in Ukraine, he actually triggered a fire alarm. He broke the glass and pulled the string, or whatever they have in Washington, D.C., in order to create a fire emergency, placing people at risk, sending the fire department hard-pressed in New York City, as he should know, no less hard-pressed in Washington, D.C., triggering them onto an emergency footing, all to avoid a vote which might have cost Biden's budget for war, weapons, missiles and bombs. There he is there on my screen now. This thug should no longer be serving in the US Congress. It is not just a crime in the United States, it is a felony in the United States to unlawfully and unwarrantedly trigger a fire alarm and a fire emergency, akin to shouting fire in a darkened cinema. This man is not fit to wear the clothes of an American congressman and should be drummed out of office. Unless they were being hypocritical about the January 6th affair, do you think that's even remotely possible that that could be true? But that was the least of the setbacks for NATO over this weekend. The biggest of them was undoubtedly the stunning defeat suffered by the pro-American, pro-NATO, pro-Ukrainian regime in Slovakia. They were defeated by a man whose campaign was based around his first act, which he promised would be the immediate and complete cessation of all aid, military and economic, from Slovakia to the kleptocratic regime in Kiev. He said the Soviet Union liberated us from the Nazis. It's time to show Russia some respect. He's being described by a series of hysterics in the media as pro-Putin, pro-Russian. Apparently, Putin has done it again, influenced the outcome of yet another poll in yet another country, having elected Donald Trump in the first place. Now he's picking the prime ministers in Slovakia. Well, this is a major problem for the EU and for NATO, because this man has a veto. This man can veto EU decisions. This man can veto NATO decisions. And allied with the Prime Minister of Hungary, Viktor Orban, there is now a significant blocking mechanism for those who wish to give away the economic future of Europe's children and grandchildren to the creep Zelensky is now in grave danger. Their majority has gone. We have a mover and we have a seconder for an alternative point of view. This is very significant indeed. And in Britain, we, forgive us, had the most significant victory for us of all. There's a man called Grant Shapps, whom I've been lampooning on radio and television for the best part of 20 years, since he entered my field of vision as Grant Shapps. A huckster is how you would describe him. In the Second World War, he'd have been called a spiv. He's a man with a motley business career behind him, a business career littered in failure and falsification. He was caught falsifying his name. That's right. Britain has a defense secretary who habitually and for self-interested reasons pretended to be someone else. A Michael Green is the name that has stuck in my mind, but there were actually multiple aliases under which he sought to conduct business. In fact, in an early sign of the times, sometimes when he was signing letters, he was a woman. He was identifying as a woman. Not Michelle Mone, but something not dissimilar. If you get my drift, British viewers will understand. This man ended up as a Conservative MP, though he could well have ended up in many other places. But he ended up as a Conservative MP and then held more government offices than almost anyone in history in the dog days of the Boris Johnson and Liz Truss administration. I've lost track of how many ministerial posts he's had, but he was then shunted to the periphery by Rishi Sunak. And then, when the Defence Secretary Ben Wallace, he of the Battle of Balaclava, stepped down from office, inexplicably, Rishi Sunak sent for Grant Shapps, Michael Green, Michelle Mone et al. And no one could quite understand it. Some thought it was a subversive move to undermine Britain's military. After all, which of the officer class is going to take orders willingly from this little twerp, this little spiv? But others thought, well, it's a sign that he's downgrading the importance of the war and the importance of Britain's contribution to it. But the thing about a spiv is he loves the attention. And so this particular spiv yesterday told the Daily Telegraph, the Conservative Party's paper of record, that alone of all the NATO countries, officially, Britain was going to send its armed forces, who could all fit into Villa Park in Birmingham, by the way, in toto, Army, Navy, and Air Force. He was going to send them, boots on the ground and all, into Ukraine, to train the Ukrainians, don't you know? They're badly in want of our training. That's why they're doing so well in the war. And not only that, he threatened to send the Royal Navy into naval encounters with the nuclear-armed Russian Navy. Now, I was a member of Parliament for many decades, representing a naval shipbuilding yard. I was forever agitating for the Royal Navy to be brought up to strength and for the shipyard in my constituency to build the resulting ships. So I keep a weather eye on the Royal Navy. And the last time I looked, Britain's Navy cannot police the English Channel, where thousands of people cross illegally into Britain to be shipped to 4-star hotels forever, perhaps, at the British taxpayers' expense. The Royal Navy is unable to stop them. But we're going to fight the Russian Navy in the Black Sea. This ranks up there with the most unbelievable statements made by Ben Wallace that he was going to avenge his regiment's ignominy when they were slaughtered at the Battle of Balaclava in the Crimean War more than 150 years ago. Ben was still smarting from the march of the ride of the 600 into the Russian guns. But Grant Shapps has outdone himself, I thought, when I thought of Britain's emaciated Royal Navy with 2 aircraft carriers that are non-functioning being sent to fight the Russian Navy. Now, I was just getting over the shock of this and trying to look on the bright side, that this would surely be the end of Grant Shapps' military career. The first time a Russian missile landed on top of the British soldiers, that would surely be it. When out came Rishi Sunak, believe it or not, Britain's Prime Minister. As Joe Biden put it, go figure. Rishi Sunak told the world in public that Shapps was talking through his hat, that no British soldiers would officially be sent into Ukraine. The idea that there are none there already in secret is, of course, entirely fanciful. But an actual deployment, officially, of British soldiers in Ukraine would be the beginning of World War III. An engagement between the emaciated Royal Navy and the Russian Navy would be like the Yangtze incident when the fledgling Chinese Navy in 1949 sank the Sapphire. It would be a humiliation for Britain's armed forces. And that's presumably why Rishi Sunak has countermanded Private Grant Shapps' orders. If not, a resignation from Mr. Green Shapps, surely a sacking is now in order. Britain's armed forces may be small, but they are highly skilled and professional people. They are people that are devoted to their country. They are people that we would rely on to defend us were anyone to attack us. They deserve better than Grant Shapps, don't they? Let me have your point of view. Now, coming up very soon, we have the former wife of Muhammad Ali. That's not all she's done in her life. Of course, she's an actress, an author, as well as being the author of one or two of the finest bon mots ever uttered by the most eloquent, articulate sportsman that has ever lived on planet Earth. And so, to set the scene, I thought I'd tell just a couple of personal anecdotes. My father, God rest his soul, was the only person I knew, and all the people I knew when Cassius Clay, as he then was, took the World Heavyweight Boxing Championship, were all white people. And none of them liked Clay Ali. None of them. In fact, many of them hated him. He was the Louisville lip. He was a black man that didn't lower his eyes when white people talked to him. He was a black man who could not only outfight anybody else, but outtalk them and look much prettier than them whilst doing so. So I got up in the middle of the night when I was 9 years old to watch Cassius Clay whop the big ugly bear Sonny Liston and become the heavyweight champion of the world and declare, somewhat over the top, screaming over the ropes, I am the greatest, I am the prettiest. And he was the greatest and the prettiest. And so I followed Ali in wonder, in admiration and love. as he fought a series of contenders and then fought his biggest ever battles against the United States government, which, in order to close his mouth, maybe for good, decided to conscript him and send him to fight in Vietnam. Ali refused to fight them Viet Cong, as he put it. He said this war is about white men sending black men to kill red men, to kill. He bamboozled them completely with a series of statements that were in themselves incontestable. That this was a government that was conscripting overwhelmingly black fighters, and many white ones too, many Latino ones too, to go and kill yellow men in the paddy fields of Vietnam, when those yellow men, as Ali put it, had never done him any harm. As he put it, and we'll discuss this in just a minute with his former wife, no Viet Cong ever called me the N-word. But of course, many in the United States had done so. When Ali came home from the Olympic Games, literally wearing the Olympic gold medal that he had won for the US Olympic team, he tried to enter a restaurant in his home city of Louisville, Kentucky, and was told that people like him were not served in this restaurant. At which point he went to a bridge over the river in the city and tossed his Olympic gold medal away. It was, I think, a turning point for him. But I've only got time to tell you about what remains the greatest epiphany of my entire life. Having followed Ali all these years, I was at a Labour Party conference in Blackpool when he had his most legendary of all his many legendary fights against George Foreman. I got up again in the middle of the night and went to a cinema, because that's the only way you could watch boxing then. Closed circuit cinema in Blackpool. And I watched, there it is there, as Ali roped the dope, soaked up the punishment, and then in a flurry that will never ever be forgotten, came off the ropes. Left, right, left, right, left, right, left, down went the colossus that was George Foreman, the world's most fearsome and heavy puncher. And as Ali raised his arms, having won the world title yet again, I never in my whole life, before or since, experienced a sense of epiphany quite like that one. That's why I'm particularly happy that my guest right now is Dr. Khalila Camacho Ali, actress, author, and former wife of Muhammad Ali. And by the way, she's just as eloquent as he was. Stay tuned.